The goal today is to install some crossbar support on this Lexus GX460, and that will allow us to load up this GX with some paddle boards so we can get to the beach. These crossbars are aftermarket. They were purchased from Amazon, link below to get your own. They come with some directions, 2 crossbars, and an Allen key. They do have to be individually assembled, these parts attached to the black portion of the crossbar. We already assembled this side. We'll now assemble this part to this side of the crossbar. This arrow is pointing in this direction, indicating forward, pointing toward the front of the vehicle. This points toward the rear of the vehicle, so that makes sense. So these 2 parts are assembled together correctly. Remove entirely these bolts. With these 2 bolts removed, assemble these 2 parts together. Now with the provided washers, reinsert the bolts to the cross rails. I left the bolts rather loose so that I can adjust this length to fit the vehicle where we need it. What's going to happen is this cross rail is going to sit on top of the vehicle, and this clamp here is going to lock this crossbar onto the vehicle. The clamp will then be tightened by this screw. Both the front rail and the rear rail are now assembled. These bolts are loosened up so that the clamp can slide onto the vehicle. This arrow will point toward the front of the vehicle, this one as well. With all of our bolts loose and these parts able to still move relative to the crossbars, let's get this on the vehicle and make the final adjustments before we lock everything down. The rails are just sitting on top of the roof. They are not yet locked down. Directions indicate when we need to take some measurements here. The front rail needs to be placed in a certain area. We need to measure from this connection here. This is the front of the vehicle. 8.5 inches backward. That's right here. Make a mark with a pencil at 8.5 inches. This front rail must sit between this line and the 8.5 inch line. Similarly, on the rear of the vehicle, you want to measure from this back edge forward toward the front of the vehicle 14 inches. Make a little mark here. The rear rail will have to sit between those limits here and here. I'm choosing to space my rails out about as far as possible on this vehicle, so in order to do that, these need to be as long as possible. I'm going to go ahead and lock these parts relative to one another by fully tightening these bolts. I'll now hook this clamp under this portion of the vehicle. I'm choosing to align this part of the front rail to this line on the vehicle. And I'll tighten down a little bit, but not completely. And at the opposite end of this rail on the driver's side of the vehicle, I'll attach this clamp hook to this side of the vehicle and tighten this bolt down a little bit. I'll complete the same steps on the rear rail. I moved the front rail a bit so it does not obstruct the sunroof. With the rails placed where I want them, I can now lock all of my bolts. I'll use an Allen key to do exactly that. And finally, we need to tighten up these top bolts. Though the directions here indicate tighten to 70 foot-pounds, these directions indicate tighten to 6 foot-pounds. That's a dramatic difference. Anyway, we're going to tighten to the lower spec using a torque wrench. With that, the rear rail and front rail are installed. Let's throw up here a paddleboard and get to the beach. And there it is, all loaded up. The cargo does clear with the height of the rails, the vehicle antenna on the back. And these straps secure anything quite well. The excess strap can be thrown inside the vehicle door, and we're ready to get to the beach. What do you think, Pop?
Good.
Yeah, let's go. I hope this helps you with your project.